Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our Transitions to a New Era of Zirconia webinar today, presented by Daniel Alter. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat box and Daniel will address them at the end. And as a reminder, we are offering 1 scientific credit for this webinar within the United States. But if you are not in the US, you can email us and request a letter of attendance to submit to your respective organizations. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Daniel.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope everybody's well, healthy, safe, and in great spirits. So today we're going to talk about the new Zirlux Transition launch. And this is the official launch of this Zirconia material, which I'm very excited about because when Zan first approached me, the folks in the team at Zan first approached me and told me about the material and some of the indications and what it can do, I was very intrigued and I wanted to test it and check it out. And I'm going to share with you my findings as well. But it's a unique product, similar to what we've done throughout, and we'll talk about technology, but it's all about evolution. And the evolution and the end result is the technology as well as materials, which is a big component of it, is what makes our lives, as well as the dentists and the patients, that much better. So we'll take a little walk through what is what can be, but certainly technology. What is technology? And it's something that a lot of people grapple with, but it's a quote that I like to start with because it's not what technology does to us, it's what we do to technology. And this is a perfect example of what we can do with technology and how we can make our lives, the patient's lives, and the dentist's lives, your clientele, that much better and that more efficient. So get smart with technology, choose wisely, and you can use it in ways that benefit both you and those around you. So whether you're the caricature on the left that is carrying the technology, I would certainly hope that the technology rather is carrying you, which is the real purpose of technology. Technology is supposed to make things better, supposed to make things easier. And yes, there are some bumps in the road, but overall, I think we can all attest to this at this point, that CADCAM and technology as well as material science have made things better. And we'll talk more about how it's made things better. But interestingly enough, all these tools are all in the palm of our hands. And it's all at our disposal. It's all at our ability of being able to attain and constantly push the envelope. Because I'm a firm believer that you have to be a constant learner. You have to constantly evolve, because in reality, when you stop evolving, when you think you know it all, you're in reality just actually going backwards because the rest of the world is moving forward. So constantly learning, constantly engaging, constantly being where we are is important. And just as a little side note, technology has gotten so much greater that we currently, not only currently, but as of about 3 to 4 years ago, in our smartphones, we have more computing power than what we had in 1969 when NASA sent the men on the moon. So think about that, and think about how much we've evolved over time in our profession as well. So many dental professionals find themselves very, uncertain, unsure, puzzled. What is the best method, and confused? And that's, you're not alone in this. But where do we start? When? How? Who? What? How? Who's, technology, and which kind of material? Certainly you've invested, if you haven't yet, in something like 3Shape. Certainly the red scanners are very exciting, as well as mills, whether it's a single mill, a multi-puck changer, or any variation of the two. The idea is to get the most amount of information or the most amount of processing and efficiency from your dental technology and as well as your hardware and materials. And why are we here? I'm a firm believer, as I said, to be a constant learner, and there's nothing more powerful than knowledge. But being able to share that knowledge is that power multiplied, and that's why we're here. And that's what I believe is the real key to success. And the reason for this webinar, particularly in this launch, is the new and really exciting transitions where there's smart incisal technology. And I'll get more into that and how that it's a proprietary recipe, for lack of better words, or a way of creating the zirconia that really provides some remarkable results. But let's take a look at the evolution of CADCAM and what has happened over the years and leading us to this material science. But CADCAM in reality is a very powerful tool, and I'm a firm believer in that. Technology is a tool to get us to where we want to get, where analog perhaps wasn't. So it could be certainly quality, it could be speed, it could be precision, and all these things are attributes of CAD/CAM. The consistency is a great attribute of CAD/CAM, but in my mind, it's all these things are a tool. It's the dental intelligence that we've over the years have experienced and we shared with our clinicians, what we've studied. That's the real powerful engine to all these to CAD/CAM and tools. But specifically today, what we're going to be talking about is a lot about material sciences. How do we achieve the shade? Certainly in the predecessors, shade was always a challenge. Translucency has been a challenge. And then finally, also consistency. But you want a well thought out quality in a premium product and something that you can attain repeatably and consistently every single time. So if it's an A1, it's an A2, it's an A3, whatever have you, you want to rest assured that it has the proper shade match every single time. It also has, and I'll explain how that can be achieved very easily with the transitions. But you also have where the challenge has always been the translucency, which with the smart Incisal technology has really offered that. So certainly we've deviated from some of these traditional methods of fabrication, as you've seen. CAD/CAM has really brought us to a great level where no longer do we have these opportunities for, or variables, for lack of better words, for these inconsistencies. And that all comes to, again, material science, where things expand or shrink according to what you're doing. So in an analog form, to achieve the same thing, whether it's a single crown or an implant restoration or whatever have you, in conventional means, there are perhaps up to 10, 12 different opportunities for inconsistencies to occur. And with every inconsistency, there's anxiety and a level that of inaccuracy that may be achieved. That's worked for a while, but now we have technology as well as material sciences to make things that much better, to make things more consistent, more mainstream, while still, and I have to emphasize on this, while still maintaining a premium and a high quality product that your dentists have grown to expect from you. This will not change the way your outcome will come. It will become much easier to achieve your outcome, but the overall quality and the aesthetics should be enhanced with the technology, and it should be at the level of what your dentist clients have grown to expect from your laboratory, and even better. You want to try to achieve even better. By removing a lot of these inconsistencies and variables, it certainly has made our work much easier. And how is that? So benefits of digital technology certainly is I consider it an anxiety reduction. It allows digital technology to provide you and your clientele with repeatable and consistent results, right? So this caricature is not a picture of me, but it perhaps was several years ago. But it offers a level of anxiety. I mean, how often have we in the laboratory sent out a case prior to digital where we went home wanting to hear from the dentist on the following day and not knowing whether it was going to be a success or perhaps some challenges that we're going to have to deal with. These are anxieties that we as laboratory owners and laboratory technicians have felt and experienced, and hopefully digital technology has been alleviating much of that. And certainly some of the struggles and some of the challenges has been thus far with the materials science, and they too have evolved similar to how our workflow has evolved within digital. But you can control, as I said, with consistency, your workflow by utilizing success-proven restorative materials such as the transitions. It has been proven, and I'll show you in a second with my testing and the protocols that I've accomplished, the results that I've attained with this line of zirconia. It increases your production, and it maintains, as I said, a better or higher quality, something that your dentist clients have grown to expect. Now, remove the cause by the inconsistencies, as I said, with the analog or conventional means. It applies for both your in-house, meaning in the laboratory, as well as for your dentist clients. It also, in a big way, reduces any kind of remakes that your laboratory produces. So certainly, within the quality control, as it exits the laboratory or throughout the laboratory, there are sometimes remakes within in-house. And this technology can certainly show and proven that it has gotten significantly easier and better, which all reduces the anxiety. And nothing more than, for the dentist, certainly the anxiety reduction. Now, there was a study, or a survey, I should say, several years ago that asked dentists, clinicians throughout the country, what is the number one reason as to why they would look for another laboratory? Now, for some reason, the survey came up where they had I forget what it was, 3 or 4 laboratories. I don't know who that half a laboratory is, but nonetheless, most dentists do look for, at times, for laboratories. So how do you maintain that business? How do you retain that business and be able to provide that level of consistency every single time? Very simply, it's anxiety. And by the way, the answer for that survey wasn't that dentists would look for different laboratories because of price. It wasn't quality. Those are the two things that you would expect in that, right? So in the surveys. But the number one reason as to why they would look at different laboratories was for the lack of consistency. They want to know that when they open up their case, when they open up their pillbox for the crown will look exactly the same as it did Monday, as it did the week before, as it did the month before, with that high level that they've grown to expect from your laboratory. The moment that inconsistency or the lack of consistency is there, it increases their anxiety, and therefore it may promote them to then look elsewhere where you want to retain your clientele, you want to benefit, and the loyalty is there. But you need to be able to provide that with consistency in every single time. So as to a dental laboratory business sense, certainly the workflow through CADCAM is significant. We've evolved in a big way, and in a second I'll show you how it's also not only to the dental laboratory, but certainly to the patient that has evolved. But offering another premium solution to your clientele, it would behoove you to constantly maintain that loyalty also, because we're constantly evolving. We're constantly looking for better, whether it's technology, whether it's hardware, whether it's material, but that is what, in order to survive, we have to constantly be in the forefront. And seeing how different things are processed in material science, it's ingenious. And as I said in the very beginning, when Don approached me, the folks from Don, it was just, I was mesmerized by the things that they were telling me and how they were able to proprietarily process the zirconia, which is US based, by the way. It's not a foreign, it's not offshores, it's all US based, so you know that the quality is significantly higher. They're utilizing a what's called a smart incisal technology that I'll get into, that actually lowers the value while gaining the translucency with the yttrias, okay? But before we get into that, dental laboratory business will certainly offer a premium solution. This is a premium line of zirconia that you can attain your shade easily. And it's not just a matter of shade. Chroma is consistent. The proper chroma for that shade is consistent, but also the translucency, which is a mix for the monolithic type of restorations. Providing aesthetic restorations that your patients want and doctors love. Now you're coming to the doctor or your dentist clients as a problem solver. They have a problem, whether it's a certain consistency, whether they want more translucency, whether they want more aesthetics. You have that solution. You have the ability of helping that dentist satisfy their patients, and their patients will sing their praises. It just fortifies even greater the loyalty that they have, as well as gaining the strength and viability of the zirconia and aesthetic of all ceramics. And as you see in a little bit, the aesthetics have really become akin to the Emax lithium disilicate type of look, which is what is desired, and certainly the ceramic look with the incisal. So certainly capturing the oral environment, that has changed in a big way. No longer are dentists placing, for lack of better words, what patients have called it, goop in their mouth, where they're gagging. This is what technology, the experience for the patient, the experience for the dentist, the experience now for the laboratory has significantly become so much better. And this is a fun, quick video that I like to show, which is the traditional impression material, as you see here, where it quite is a different experience than what you have with a digital impression. as opposed to a digital impression. Think of being that patient. Think of the doctor, the dentist that is utilizing either one of these. Where is the better patient's experience? Is the overall feeling? You know, there's a lot of dental phobe patients out there, and having just something as simple as an intraoral scanning just changes their whole dynamic for as far as the patient dental experience. So same goes for the laboratory, and certainly now we're looking at the not only the patient's experience, but also the dentist experience, and ultimately the laboratory's experience as well. And with that said, who are our patients? Our patients are our mothers, our fathers, our uncles, our cousins, our boyfriends, girlfriends, what husbands, wives, whatever the case may be. These are all people that have or are somebody's grandparents, are somebody's husbands or wives. And it's something that we as laboratory owners, we create smiles, we restore smiles for these patients. We allow them to not only function properly, but feel good about themselves, because now finally perhaps they can smile and they're very proud of their aesthetics and proud of their smile. Think about the effect that we're affecting to the patients. Certainly we're making the dentist or the clinical side easier and better with the technology in the laboratory as well as the materials, but ultimately we're also creating smiles that last a lifetime for patients. And those patients are somebody's grandmother, somebody's mother, somebody's cousin, somebody's wife, somebody's husband. We owe them the very best of premium care. Now, certainly, we've satisfied those over the years, and we continue to evolve and continue to satisfy. But the laboratory, too, is where you need to look at the perspective. How do you make things better and easier and more efficient and ultimately more profitable for your business and your dental laboratory? By utilizing the best of class type of materials and hardware. So, which brings me to this exciting new Zirconia launch. And this, by the way, is the official launch of the Zirconia line. And I'm very proud of it. It's certainly proud to be made in the USA. That is something that when I saw that, I was very, very impressed. And not only certainly with the technology that I'm going to get into in a little bit, but also the fact that it's made here in the US. So many other brands are made elsewhere where it's now you have, and there's something that I'll demonstrate at the very end that fortifies that for your dentist, because your dentists as well will appreciate the fact that it's manufactured here in the United States. But this new Zirconia it's appreciated multi with what's called a smart incisal technology. It's indicated for anterior as well as for posterior. And this is something to take note of because the strength of it is 1100 to 1200 megapascal. And it's ideal for both anterior or posterior. Quite honestly, it's ideal for a single restoration all the way to a 14-unit roundhouse. And that's what also is impressive with this, because of the high MPAs that this Zirconia offers, with the high aesthetics that this Zirconia offers. Now in reality, there's only one type of Zirconia that is really necessary in a laboratory, rather than the way most laboratories that have 3, if not 4 type of Zirconias to meet the needs of it, to meet the needs of their clients for aesthetics, for strength. This has it all together in one. And then took it a step further with the smart incisal, which I'm really, really excited about. But it's easy to mill. It is a denser material because it has been it's processed in a different way than what is traditionally, which is the hybrid colloid processing. And again, it's made right here in the US. And what that does is it creates a Zirconia with it's a 4Y Zirconia, so it has the yttria, but it's tetragonal. And not to get too technical on you, but it's a stable Zirconia. And the yttria is more in the incisal line. So when you place or you nest your restorations in the proper type of disc, it will automatically give you the proper gradation. Now it's different than, it's in a different class than any of the multi-layers. Because what you get with multi-layers oftentimes is you get the line of demarcation between the layers. This is different than that because this is all through a 4Y yttria, but yet it has the smart incisal technology at the top of the puck. So now you're not getting the gradation. You're actually getting a harmonious flow between chroma, which is going to be the most at the gingival, and then as you get towards the incisal, you get obviously more translucency and more incisal, and you get that bluish grayish tint that we've all come to expect from our ceramics and what natural teeth exhibit. So it mimics very similarly to not only natural teeth, but also to ceramics. And the results are really, really remarkable. And I'll show you some results in a second. So as you can see on the very bottom here, these are implant supported restorations, obviously, but they really come to life because not only so that yttria and that in smart incisal also takes a lot and soaks in a lot of the adjacent teeth's colors and adjacent teeth, because being that it's translucent, it mimics and camouflages this way and just blends beautifully in the mouth. So whether you're doing a single restoration or you're doing a full 14-unit roundhouse, the nice thing with this is you can, and it will come out very, very aesthetic. You know, in the previous different types of zirconia, oftentimes laboratories would cut back the incisals of the anteriors in order to make it more aesthetic. This is all done for you. So think of the amount of time you're saving in the laboratory, the amount of labor, the amount of manpower, the amount of skill. If you can design this in a full contour, which you can and should, and then nest it in the normal, there's nothing that needs to be learned that's any different, because the Zahn has thought of all these different, in the proprietary formula, they've thought of this, and they've, in essence, everything is very mainstream. You design it the way you normally do in CAD, and then you nest it in your mill, and it's a 98.5 millimeters, so it fits into most mills. But the incisal obviously has to be facing upwards. So that's where the higher yttria level is, the more the bluish grayish and the lower value it is, where the chroma is further down the disc, giving you that gradation where the chroma is by the gingiva, and as we proceed up the incisal, it lessens in color, but then replaces it with more translucency. And quite honestly, the results are truly remarkable. So here on the bottom, and going back to the way it was pressed, so it's pressed with a hybrid colloid, as I said. It's pressed differently. It's under suspension, and there's a reason why they do that, because then it could be manufactured or processed where there's greater level of yttria at the incisal, and then the blend becomes gradation rather than multi-layer. And it's also a much, much denser zirconia, which means that not only is it denser, so the shrinkage factor is a little smaller, but you'll see it's a little bit tougher because it's a denser material, but all throughout you have a true color throughout due to that process. So it's really an impressive process. One thing I want you to note, and this is a peripheral, but a really innovative and a really smart way of calibrating your sintering of it. So quite honestly, most of issues that occur with shades and with translucency, with this zirconia and any other, is if your sintering oven is not running or proper to temperature. And calibration is a must in order to maintain your efficiency, maintain your quality and your consistency. And this is the Zirlux Transition Calibration Kit, and it couldn't have been any easier. It's so simple and so smart that it's a no-brainer to do this. And what it is it's very similar to what, these down here, which you only need one, by the way. And it's about the size of a mint, and you can put this in your oven while you're sintering any of your other type of zirconia. So certainly, if you're sintering before you start this, you want to calibrate this, because a 20 degree, a 30 degree, a 10 degree would make a big difference in what the outcome is. So in order to ensure that, Zahn through Zirlux Transition Calibration Kit have come up with this, and I sincerely encourage and suggest very strongly for you to calibrate your sintering oven before you start using this zirconia, as well as doing it on a regular maintenance level. And it's incredibly simple and incredibly easy. So as for an example, you put this with your regular zirconia. So if you're baking it, if you're sintering at about 1500 degrees, nothing changes. Regardless of what you're sintering, 1550, 1500C, 1450, it doesn't make a difference. You place one of these rings, which are calibration rings, that is about the size of a mint, and you place it into your regular sintering, and you do everything the way you normally do. You run it up at a regular cycle of about 9 hours, whatever you do. And then when it comes out, you want to use this gauge, calibration, a digital gauge, and you want to see what it's changed, okay? How it changed in the geometric and how to go about it. So, and then it comes with a very nice chart. So for example, going back to my example of 1500, if you're sintering at 1500, you place this ring in, or this calibration ring in with your crowns. So it's not interrupting your cycle. It's not disrupting anything. You don't have to use the sintering oven for 9 hours and be out of production. No, this is placed in with your regular production. Then you measure what is the actual ring, and it has changed according to temperature. And this is a pure dense zirconia that allows that geometrically to affect. You measure it and you correlate this number, whatever comes out, and every oven is going to have a little bit of a different variance, and you match it with what is, as you see here in this chart, and I apologize that it's so small, but when you have it in your laboratory, it's very easy to identify. So here it shows the calibration came out as a 19.47. And when we look at the chart, 19.47 equates to a temperature, a true temperature, in your sintering oven of 1506 degrees. Now, if you sintered at 1500, right, that means that your oven is now running 6 degrees hotter. And that may change and will change the way your zirconia comes out. So once you do that and you do this repeatably and you note it, you just now, instead of the next cycle, instead of running it at 1500, now you're running it at 1494, which is on the screen going to tell you the temperature of 1494, but in reality, we're confirming that inside the oven, the temperature is true to 1500 because we've adjusted for the discrepancy. So this ring allows us to then, see exactly what's happening in the sintering oven, because this will react to temperature and and shrink according to that temperature, provide us with, once we measure it and then we correlate it, and you can see there's a ton of different numbers here, and they all correlate to the same, what the temperature is. So if we go down a little bit, and if this was 0.03 greater, it would show us that it would indicate that the oven is really running at 1489, which is now 11 degrees colder than what the window shows. And it's something that will affect your results in your zirconia. So it's a very simple and innovative way of achieving something. It's not disruptive. It doesn't interrupt your cycle, your production in any way. And you can maintain the consistency with temperature that you need in order to make sure that the colors are all correct. So then that brings me, as I shared with you in the very beginning, that when the team at Zahn first approached me, I was intrigued. I wanted to see what it is that this, proprietary Incisal technology can do, the true to Chroma. So I took all the popular shades, and I wanted it with a shade tab to make sure that it matches. And what I did was I used a single central with the same STL. So I milled it, the same exact crown, times, I'm going to show you in a second, times about 8 different crowns, and then matched it accordingly. Now, as the results were of the shade and chroma gradation and translucency were absolutely remarkable. And mind you, these are examples of with no stains added. This was just hand polished, which you could glaze this zirconia, but and achieve these results next to these shade tabs. And take note of the translucency that is exhibited there. Take note of also the darker shades and how difficult they typically are to attain with zirconia, because we have that high value. With this proprietary type of processing, with the hybrid colloid processing, it has figured all that out. Look at the chroma, look at the delineation. There is no delineation. It is a gradient through and through, from the very light shades of A1, which this particular zirconia even has a bleach shade, all the way to a C3, which we all know is very, very difficult with some lines to be able to, with some zirconias to be able to achieve. And this, honestly, I can tell you, hit the mark every single time with no stains. Some, you can glaze under vacuum and it does make it appear shinier, as you see here, but this was all hand polished. This was all And the results are truly remarkable. Even down here at the darker shades, you can see this is not layered. You even see a halo down here from the translucency that we mimic, or we try to achieve. Even in the B1s, you can see that halo from the translucency, and hopefully you can see this. And I know pictures don't always do it justice, and that's why I suggest and recommend that you try it for yourself. But look at the B1, which have always been very difficult to achieve. You can see the halo, you can see that bluish gray incisal, you can see the proper type of chroma, including with the A1 as well as the A2. I mean, you see the chroma, the warmth and the saturation is all there, as well as the D2. Look at that enamel. And I was just blown away when I saw this. I was really, really impressed, and it's different. It's a new evolution of what I consider zirconia to really be able to achieve. So now, sintering parameter is another benefit to this, and it's something that I really encourage you to at the very least try, and I think you too will be very pleasantly and remarkably pleased with the results. But looking at the production, and as I just finished saying, that the digital, and certainly when I say digital, it doesn't only mean hardware, it doesn't only mean scanners, it doesn't only mean mills, it also means, in my mind, material science, which is the materials that we're utilizing. But as we evolve and as we keep pushing the envelope to be better and be more efficient and be more productive and have the quality that we desire, that our dentist clientele desire, as well as our patient desire, we want to be mindful that it doesn't interrupt in any way your production cycle, because at the end of the day, we are all running a business. So the Zirlux Transitions has a typical 9-hour type of sintering cycle. It also has a 7-hour sintering cycle, as well as a speed cycle. Now, the speed cycle is 4 hours and 15 minutes from room temperature to room temperature with cooling. Certainly you can utilize the 7 hours, or if you have, so whichever way your business model, your production currently works, you can fit this in. The one thing that I do want to note is, however, which is different, because we all know that there are some zirconias out there that are promoting the fact that they have a speed cycle. But notice how many within the transition that you can sinter at once, up to 30 per batch. So it has to be 30 single crowns. So not, bridges need a little bit more time, so they need the 7 hours, 3 in a bridge or greater. And that's because we want to make sure, you want to ensure that the sintering or the temperature is through and through in the entire zirconia. And typically with bridges, you have Pontics, and you want to be able to make sure that the sintering is proper. But if you have the bread and butter the laboratories mostly have, and you can mill out, and you can every 4 hours batch another 30 singles, within a day cycle of, let me see, within a 12-hour shift, a 12-hour and 45 minutes, you can, in theory, sinter 120 single units. I mean, that's remarkable. That's a significant production that you can utilize, in a very rapid way. And within 4.5 hours, you can have a restoration that you can be proud of. It's a premium restoration with a lot of high aesthetics in a very quick turnaround time, if you choose to do that, if that's the way your business model works in your laboratory. If not, and you sinter overnight, by all means, you can sinter for 9 hours, and you can do any kind of restoration in that time span. So you can do a 14-unit roundhouse, you can do a 3-unit bridge, you can do a single, you can do anything in between, and you can have multiple restorations in your sintering oven. So whichever fits your laboratory. If you're running two sintering ovens, if you're running 3, 4, you may allocate bridge work for 9 hours and singles for 4 hours. It's really, the idea is the flexibility of even the sintering is all within your control now. So you're getting a zirconia that is gradient, it has true chroma, it has true incisal in the way we look at incisal. And then for production, you can choose how you want to sinter it, as long as please respect the fact that single crowns can be speed fired, where now you're getting into bridges. It is certainly not recommended, but you can still have a 7-hour sintering cycle or a 9-hour sintering cycle. So the flexibility and the decision is ultimately yours, in your hands as a laboratory owner, to achieve and attain a consistent and repeatable, high quality premium content. So again, with the Zirlux transition, it is appreciated multi, and notice it's a gradient rather than a multi-layer, because the layers oftentimes, so what ends up happening with the multi-layers, we go ahead and we mill it, we place it, and then we stain it to mask or hide any of those individual layers or those lines of demarcation. This you don't have to be concerned about. And in fact, this picture, which is an A2, is straight out of the sintering oven. And here you can even tell this hasn't been touched. It literally, it was milled and placed right in the sintering oven, in a big sintering oven. And you can see with shade A2, look at the chroma, and then look at the enamel, and it even goes down into the interproximals as well as the line angles. Once you place a little bit, you can certainly glaze it, which we'll get into. You can hand polish it, and if you stain it, if you add a little bit into proximally, which is what we do even in ceramics to make them look individual, it just comes to life. It's something that I was very, very impressed with, and I encourage you to try it, and I'm sure you'd be impressed with as well. But it is a high chroma in the cervical body area and decreased chroma as you get more incisal area. It has the blue and the gray effect, which actually lowers the white value, which is what has been the main complaint of zirconia, is that bright white that we oftentimes are working very diligently to mask and to control, to tame, so that it doesn't jump at you, which is what zirconia is. And it has like a grayish translucency. Honestly, as a ceramist first, that translucency was really impressive. It's something that we work very hard to place on there in order to attain those same results, as well as the gradient zirconia, which provides translucency. Now, going back to the 1200 megapascal, look at its counterparts. Certainly Emax, which again, I would argue that has that has similar aesthetic values, that has comparable aesthetic values, but you can't do anything greater than a 3-unit bridge on it, right? So you have to be cognizant, and you want to be more anterior than the premolars or the second premolar. You can't and shouldn't go any further with the Zirlux transitions. Now you're no longer you're no longer bound by where it's placed. You can, with 1200 megapascals, you can place it anywhere in the mouth. You can, as I said, you can do a single restoration, a 3-unit bridge, or a full 14-unit roundhouse. It is up to you. And now you can use just one line and get the same comparable results as you do with any of these, but now it's one line. You can do a 14-unit bridge as well as a single, a 3-unit bridge, anything in between. Ultimately, with the right aesthetic premium product, you are the one who should be in control. You're the one who's making the decisions as what to use. You now have an opportunity with a new evolution of zirconia to be able to carry only, if need be, one line to accomplish every and any indication that you have in your laboratory and that your dentist requests. So the Zirlux transition comes in 16 classic Vita shades as well as one bleach shade. The coloring is consistent and is closer to the shade tab than any other material that I've seen on the market and tested. It comes currently in a 98 millimeter, as well as the thickness is 14, 18, 22 for all 17 shades. As I said, this is something that you can share with your dentist. You can be very proud that it is made in the US. It also comes, which I think this is a great way of promoting your quality and your consistency and your being as a patriot and having your eye on the ball where you want to provide your dentist with the best quality. Every box of the Zirlux transitions comes with 10 Identa ceramic certificates, which correlates to the exact placement or where it's processed, which is here in the US. And you can give that with confidence, and you can maintain that for your records, and you can maintain that for the dentist and the patient records. So if there's ever a question as to the origin of where the place where it was originally made, it can get tracked all the way to the processing, but it gives that level of confidence, which, by the way, any offshore type of zirconia, they don't have this because they can't. This is something that only zirconias and material sciences that are processed here, that are made here in the US, and Zahn has a proprietary formula and manufactures it here in the US, and therefore you can then share that confidence in the quality through giving your dentist this IdentiCeram certificate that correlates that you have invested in good products that you know and can rest assured that it is made well here in the US. So I think this is a fantastic thing, and certainly correlates with the, a lot of the what's in your mouth type of campaign, certainly that has been out and shows. And dentists are aware of these things, and dentists want things that are made in the US. And now you can come with the material as well as the IdentiCeram, which is identical, well, not identical, but alloy, which we've had for many, many years. But now it falls into IdentiCeram, and certainly zirconia falls within that. So now each box comes with 10 of these, but you can request more if you need more, if you're doing more units out of that box. But each box automatically comes with 10, so you can rest assured that it is a premium, high quality product. And the translucency is what's really blown away with this. So the R&D focused on getting the base shades closest, and it's all with how they, the coloring of it. And you can see here that the chroma, or the proper chroma saturation, is highest at the cervical, and then it starts diminishing and replacing the chroma in the middle with more enamel. And then you look at the translucency level. Obviously this is with a light behind it, but nonetheless the translucency is there, and this is purely just milled, designed and then milled, and you're able to achieve those kind of results, which I would say the R&D department certainly hit a bullseye with this. It's the most impactful, and certainly for the shades, and it gives a thumbs up, and it's something that I personally, when I tested, I was truly and honestly impressed by the results. So it's certainly a zirconia, and certainly a next generation, for lack of better words, but it's an evolution, just like we've done with everything from when we entered into the digital world. And with the scanners, they too have evolved. The mills, they too have evolved. All the technology has evolved, as well as material science, and we're constantly evolving. But this is now the next step of attaining that premium quality product. And ultimately, it makes it easier for the laboratory, because we no longer need to remove the labial in order to then enhance the aesthetics. We no longer even need to be able to, stain the shade that we're trying to achieve, because even if we're staining the shade that we're trying to achieve, if for argument's sake in the former zirconias, as we tried adding to true to shade, we can match, but yet that too, now we're starting to perhaps add some inconsistencies or variables that may and will affect the level of quality. Here you have it built in. It's already built into the zirconia. So the need for staining, there isn't, because it matches the shade A2, matches, as I've shown you in my test, in the protocols that I've done. So you're able to achieve that saturation and that Incisal, smart Incisal technology, which is remarkable. Now, with that said, when it comes to staining and glazing, you can certainly stain as well as glaze, as well as layer on top of the zirconia. Nothing is different. The CTEs still allow that. So if you're a laboratory and you want to go ahead and add enamel, or if there's a certain caricature that you want to add, you certainly can. Most probably will not, because it doesn't require it. If it's a regular run-of-the-mill shades where you're getting an A3, an A35, A2, whatever have you, a C3, the chroma is already built in, from the gingival to the middle third, all the way to the smart technology, Incisal technology that is on the incisal edge. And you don't have those individual lines of with a multi-unit that you see with some zirconias. So you can utilize it, what I said with the stain and glaze, which you should glaze this with vacuum in order to really make it pop, but you don't have to change or buy or get a new stain and glaze kit. Anything that you've used in your previous zirconia, even emax stains and glaze, everything that you've used, I personally use the GC or the CRZ from Noritake, which give great results. So if you use that in your laboratory, or whatever you've used in your laboratories thus far will absolutely work and enhance in a way that you've accustomed to. So it doesn't, again, interrupt anything different than what you've done thus far. The only difference is now you're getting a premium or an evolved zirconia to achieve that result quicker and more efficiently with less labor and work hours. So it's a win-win, certainly, as I said, for the patient first and foremost, because they get a high quality premium aesthetic restoration. It's better for the dentist because they don't have to be filled with anxiety, as I said in the beginning, whether the shade is going to look good, whether the shade is going to be consistent, what is the difference. You're attaining that, and you can promise your dentist that that will be the same because it's already formulated into the zirconia. So there's less opportunities for things to go awry. And then ultimately for your laboratory business, the more efficient, the better and more lean you are with the technology and the materials, which falls into digital, the easier and more efficient and more productive your laboratory can be, the less you're expensing per restoration, the more profitability that you and your laboratory can enjoy from it. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win for all. And I'm incredibly proud of that the Zahn team asked for me to evaluate this zirconia. I was very excited when they asked me. I was very excited to see the results. And when they shared their formula and their proprietary kind of technology, I was blown away because it is so simple that it's simple but it's incredibly innovative, where it provides these results very easily. Now, if any of your attendees perhaps are not yet engaged in digital, and whether they have a scanner and they don't have a mill, there's a milling center called Aurora that is currently milling this premium zirconia, and you can benefit from that with your dentist clientele. So certainly it's a product that I encourage you to at the very least test out, and I think you'll be very pleased, as I was when I tested it, because the translucency as well as the chroma and the color and the gradation is truly remarkable. As I showed you in the study, it's something that I just took the shade tab and just matched to it, and I even brought some colleagues with me at the university when I was documenting it, and they were floored. They couldn't believe that it was zirconia, and not just zirconia, that it was monolithic or monochromatic zirconia, which was really impressive. They were sure that I added some incisal porcelain to it and so on. So I encourage you to check it out. And again, I just want to thank the Zahn folks for asking me to be involved with this test and this zirconia, and I'm excited for everybody to try it and to gain the same extraordinary results that I was able to get. So with that said, I think we're good on time, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer, and Katie will read them off. So thank you again for taking the time to sit through this webinar. I really hope you found value in this, and thank you to the Zahn team for asking me to engage in this. Thank you.
We had two questions pop in. So the first one is, do you have a calibrating chart for different brand pucks?
So, and that's a fantastic question. In reality, it does not, it's not a puck specific calibration. The calibration is it's a Zirlux calibration, and I have it in my hand here. I don't know how well you can see it, but that's the size of it. And it comes with 2 calibration rings and can be ordered from Zahn. And it can go with any kind of zirconia. Certainly, you want to calibrate your furnace prior to using the Transitions zirconia, and that's only because you want to hit it off the ground with a huge success. But in reality, it's not specific to a zirconia. You can calibrate your furnace, and I encourage everybody on this webinar to do so and calibrate their furnaces, because you want to make sure that your temperature is true to what the window is showing. And there are some sintering ovens that have calibration components, but this proved sometimes some degrees off. So It does work for other pucks. Certainly there are, but and I shouldn't say that it doesn't. It's not that it works for other pucks. It's irrelevant of which pucks you're sintering. The relevancy is the true temperature of what is happening in your sintering oven, which is so critical to the results that you're going to get from your zirconia. And certainly with transitions, you want to get that, that incisal. You want to get that proper chroma, because as we know in sintering, if it's too hot or it's too cold, it affects the chroma in a big way. Certainly, it either burns away the chroma or it doesn't allow the translucency and the chroma to really come out. So it's imperative to make sure that your sintering oven is in fact running true to temperature so that you get the best results and consistent and repeatable results every single time. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is, do you have 25 millimeter available for full arch cases?
So at the moment, no, but I know that it's being worked upon. But it's certainly something that is coming down the pipe. Now the 25 millimeter, keep in mind that the 25 millimeter for larger implant type of all-on-4 and all-on-X type of restoration, that you need that vertical dimension. I would encourage whoever asked that question, certainly all of you in the webinar, because realize that the way this is processed with the hybrid colloid, which means that it's a much denser, it's a much more constricted type of zirconia, that the shrinkage factor is less. Now, it may, where you would typically fit it into a 25 millimeter, because you really only need about 21 or 22 millimeter, you may be able to, with this zirconia, with the shrinkage rate of it, fit it into perhaps a 20, which is available. But they're certainly in the works. So 25, the best way is just to let the folks at Zahn know that you're interested in it. As soon as it becomes available, I'm sure they'll reach out to you.
Okay, so the next question is, how many uses can you get out of a calibration disc?
So unfortunately, just one. Once you do the calibration, it has shrunk according to the temperature. However, the kits typically come with two, and you can order as many as whatever your protocol for maintenance may be. And you do, once you use the one, you measure it, and it's done shrinking, for lack of better words. But they're well worth the investment, and they're not expensive. They're not. But you just want to be able to use it and know that it's you have the right temperature running within your sintering oven, because it could make a difference of, perhaps, I don't know, depending on your laboratory and how many you sinter in a matter of a week or a month. Imagine the temperature is off by 30 degrees, which will be catastrophic to your shades and your zirconia. It's well worth the calibration ring, and again, you get two in each package of the calibration. So I personally, I do it before I used this before I did the transitions test, and I continue to use this. But I don't do a lot of production, but certainly, those of you who do a lot of production, but I do it on a regular basis once a month. If you're doing a lot of production and you need it once a week, just to ensure that you're running the right temperature so that you get the right results every single time, I think it would be well worth your time and effort to do so. And again, it's something that doesn't disrupt or interrupt your production cycle. It's literally putting the size of a mint in with your sintering. You can do it on a Monday morning protocol or a Friday night, whatever your maintenance protocols that you have instilled in your laboratory. It's just adding another measure of security and insurance that you're running your sintering oven to its optimal condition.
Okay, so the next one is, what is the sintering temperature high for Zirlux Transitions?
So it's a 1500 C. That's a great question as well. You can see it in the different, they're all the parameters, just the holding times that are different in the ramp up rate. So the speed obviously has a higher ramp up rate, but 1500 is the temperature. And again, after you calibrate it, that temperature may slightly, but in a pure oven calibrated at the 1500 C. So it's within line of all the regular zirconias. And again, this is what's exciting about this, is that you don't have to change anything in your workflow. You don't have to change anything in your production. You don't have to change anything in your protocol. Most likely, you're currently using a zirconia that is between 1450 and 1520. This is smack in the middle. This is 1500. So your ovens can handle it. And in fact, you can utilize this one line to perhaps, replace or enhance 2 or 3 other zirconia lines that you may have in your laboratory. Now, with it having 1100 to 1200 megapascal with the aesthetics and the chroma, you can use it from a single restoration to a 14-unit bridge. It's completely up to you, and you are in full control of this.
Okay, the next one is, how do you recommend this material on implant cases for opaque staff on titanium abutment, as some zirconia come with opaque shade?
Yes. So, and that's another great question. Now, the way this is formulated is that at the gingival area, which is where your tie bases are going to be, it's more chromatic and more opaque in that area. So the translucency or the extra yttria is really at the incisal, which that's really the titanium base doesn't go anywhere near that. So we're typically at the cervical end of things, but it is a 4Y zirconia, which means that it is more translucent than a 3Y zirconia. But I haven't seen a case yet or have studied where it actually comes through. Now, if it's very thin, the color of the titanium can come through? Perhaps. But what I would do in that case, if I was faced with that challenge, I would actually use some composite opaque to mask the titanium, the tie base, before bonding it, or even using the bonding cements with opaquer in them, if that ever becomes a concern. But I haven't seen that, and I don't expect it to be, because the way it's formulated, as I said, there's a higher concentration of chroma by the cervical, and then as it gradates to the incisal, it becomes more and more translucent. So I don't foresee that becoming an issue, but if it does, then certainly you can use cement opaques to block out anything rather than clear.
Okay, so we have 2 more questions. The first is, I would just like to know if you have any specific coloring liquids you use.
So it's a very, very good question. I don't use coloring liquids for this, because it's pre-shaded. So it's saturated with the color, and it's formulated in the optimized color for that shade. So I don't use any pre-sintered stains for this zirconia line. However, afterwards, after I sinter it, if I need to enhance, typically on the gingival in the interproximals, if I just want to add a little bit more of chroma, or I want to enhance a little bit, then I use like GC or the Noritake stain and glaze that is post sintering glaze to it. I don't recommend, and you shouldn't use any pre-sintering stains on this, because it will absolutely affect, and the results will not be, perhaps not as indicated, or not as you wanted. I mean, there's been so much R&D and so much formulation to achieve the shade right out of the puck that I would not suggest altering it, and it may completely change and affect your outcome. So I personally don't use it. I do not recommend using any pre-sintering stains for this pre-shaded zirconia.
Okay, and the last question is, actually another one just came in, but what's the best material to bring Zerlux to high shine? Any paste, glaze, or recommendations?
So the glazes are good, and you can use, as I said, the Noritake CRZ or the GC luster paste, which work out very, very well. You do need to use it with vacuum, which makes it even that much more lustrous. There are both rubber wheels as well as pastes that I've used, and with comparable results. Certainly, there's Harvest just came out with a new paste that is amazingly how well it shined. So you're able to shine it, but you do need a soft hard bristle brush rather, and the surface needs to be obviously smooth and pre-sintered. But otherwise, I use like a Brasseler type of sequence from coarse to medium to fine if I want to high shine with a diamond impregnated rubber wheels. So you have the gamut, and that's why I like to test them all and kind of share my results with them all. But I can honestly tell you that when it comes to getting that glaze or getting that pop that you're looking for, I use both. I certainly glaze But I also use, especially for anteriors, I use a rubber wheel or a paste in the mammalian rolls, where the high spots, where I try to leave in between the mammalian. And again, this is for a younger patient. I try to leave the contours and the textures that are present. So glaze can time, especially if you put it on very thick, can minimize your caricature or your texture. And if that's the case, then I would always go for a, like I said, Harvest has a very nice paste that is in a box, and you just use it and it shines really, really nicely, really, really quickly. So you have opportunities depending on what you're trying to achieve at the very end.
Okay, and the last question is from the same attendee that asked about the coloring liquids. He's just asking if it is a universal stain.
Yes, it is a universal stain. And when I'm wondering, when you say universal stain, well, the universal stain certainly is for the post-processing, and that's, luster paste or CRZ for Noritake. Those are all, as well as Emax glaze and stain, all works for that. So those are all universal, and nothing needs to change as far as your protocol or what you currently have. As far as pre-sintering, it's obviously proprietary and it's formulated at the processing center. So although it is universal stain, for lack of better words, but it is specific to the formulation of the transitions, which is what makes it so unique and so wonderful. A lot of energy, a lot of resources, a lot of talent went into configuring this formulation. And as well as the stains and the colors that come through it is all a result of all this effort. And it's tremendous that we're able to benefit from those efforts.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel, for answering all those questions, and thank you for presenting today.